There's something I've been trying to put into words for a long time. It's the way I felt during lockdown. It's the way I felt when people were being told to behave in a certain way. And as a scientist, I felt that maybe it wasn't the right way. There was a lot of questioning and a lot of inability to accept. And there were people who were being thrown out of communities, even Jewish communities. People being thrown out of families because they didn't agree with either mask wearing or lockdowns or any of the other things that happened during that period. When we were being forced to behave in a way that maybe isn't the Jewish way, or isn't at least the way that I see the Jewish way to be. And hence why I resigned from my community. And I belonged to the most welcoming community that welcomed everybody. Didn't matter your color, didn't matter if you're Christian, didn't matter what gender you were or are, didn't matter what sex you are, didn't matter what belief system you had, didn't matter if you were converted or not, but it mattered during COVID, during lockdown, how you behaved when the leaders came and told you how to behave. And excommunication is not a Jewish thing. Being thrown out of your community, out of your family, is not a Jewish thing. And we can see that in the Haggadah, which we're going to read on Monday night, the Passover book. And in the Haggadah, which is the story, there are 4 sons. There's the wise son, I'm just reading from the book, the wicked son, the simple son, and the one who hath no capacity to inquire. The 4th one, in modern language, who doesn't know how to ask. When someone says something that you disagree with, it's an opportunity for debate. It's an opportunity for discussion. It's an opportunity for deep introspection. It's an opportunity to be an adult. It's an opportunity to be Jewish. One of the things that's made Jewish people so competent, so, with an ability to forgive, with an understanding that if your people have been around for 5,000 years, other people would have wanted your stuff, would have wanted to kill you for your stuff, because you've built stuff that they want, and they don't want to work for it, so the easiest way to do is for them to build an army and take your stuff, kill you, and you have to start again. And so every 50, 100 years, we have to restart. Rebooting is in our culture. But throwing fellow Jews out is not in our culture. And yes, of course, there are very religious people or very orthodox people or very different kinds of sects who you've got to be in their sect to be part of their sect. That's okay. They're not throwing people out. They have specific admission criteria. But if you're part of that group and the leader comes along and says, you have to do this, you have to wear a mask, or you have to lock down, or you have to do whatever, then dissent is the Jewish way. It's the thing that I like about Judaism, where I can say, hey, God, you made a mistake. Even Moses, the great prophet, the great Jewish prophet, one of them, fought with God when God wanted to kill all the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah. And Moses said, if I can find 50, if I can find 20, if I can find 10 good people, will you save the city? And he couldn't find the 10. But God said, I will. So, and there's also other bits and pieces that we will see. But there's 4 sons. There's the wise son. What is the wise son? The wise son is the one that says, okay. Maybe the wise son isn't that wise. Maybe the simple son is more wise because the simple son says, hey, I enjoy playing. I enjoy surfing. Why should I lock myself in a house with all of these disease-prone people when I can be on the beach surfing? That was one of the things during lockdown, wasn't it? We weren't allowed to go surfing. What a crazy thing. We weren't allowed to walk on the beach. We weren't allowed to be in wide open spaces. We had to lock ourselves up in narrow, small spaces, in narrow rooms. We weren't allowed to question. The simple son, the son who doesn't know how to ask, well, okay, he doesn't know how to ask. He's like the wise son. They just accept. It's a very weird thing that the one son who's asking questions, the simple son maybe, is actually the wise one. And then there's the wicked son, who is always anti. Maybe I'm the wicked son, but Judaism doesn't chase the wicked son away. The Haggadah shows that the wicked son is welcomed into the family. When that person says something that the people disagree with, they say, okay, let's talk to this person and let's see why they think the way they think. And so there's so much going on here. We cannot be throwing people out. In the Torah portion of this week, we read about leprosy. In the Torah, leprosy is not the leprosy of today. It was people being off color. And what happened in that time is the person with, let's call it leprosy, was sent out of the community. They had their own private lockdown outside the community. The whole community wasn't locked down. Only the person who was sick was locked down. And after a time, after they had been in quarantine, they were welcomed back into their community. We didn't shut down the whole community. We didn't shut down the whole economy because of a sickness or a plague. So why aren't we learning our most basic things as Jews in Judaism? Why do we have to go searching in other faiths like I have and spent 8 years studying Buddhism, going on retreats? Because I found myself in Buddhism, even though I spend a half an hour to an hour every single day studying Torah. And I study other things as well. So I'm asking you, we have ancient texts. We're going to read them next week. We read them this week. We read them every single day. But are we just continuing by rote? Or are we continuing the way we should be? You know, until maybe 50 or 100 years ago, each town had its own Beth Din. Each town had its own religious court. And it didn't have to have 3 rabbis. It just had to have 3 learned people who were elected by their community to represent them in the court and make decisions on their behalf. If they didn't like it, they elected other people. And so you could have the Paul community and the Worcester community and the Piketberg community and all those ancient Jewish communities that had their own rules and regulations and laws and possibly different foods that were kosher or not kosher because it depended on the staple food. What was available, what wasn't available, what could we eat, what couldn't we eat, what did we have to do? And there's a thing called minhag hamakom, which is the first thing you do when you go to a new community. You see, how do they behave? What is their custom? I grew up standing for a particular prayer, the prayer for the dead. But if I go to a Sephardi synagogue, they sit. And the first time the prayer came up, I stood up, but everyone else was sitting, so I sat down. And they probably all looked at me and said, he's not one of us. But as soon as I sat down, they said, he's one of us. Because I'm not trying to follow my custom. I'm automatically accepting their custom. Because I'm in their arena. And the Jewish way is to question. The Jewish way is not acceptance. Jewish way is moving forward. The Jewish way is welcoming that wise son, that wicked son, that simple son, and the one who doesn't know how to ask. The Jewish way is not excommunication. The Jewish way is forgiveness. We have a forgiving God, a kind, compassionate, loving, understanding, forgiving God, who doesn't shoot people in the night. I don't have a God who has vengeance in his or her heart. I have a God that's ultimately, infinitely compassionate. Rechem, rachamim. Infinitely. That's my God. My God doesn't need sacrifices. The sacrifice is for me. Doesn't need books. He doesn't need prayers. Those are for me. But the prayers are to remind me that there's something bigger than myself. There's something bigger than me at work in the universe. somewhere out there. And I accept that. But I can still question it. And it, or God, wants me to question God. We cannot be allowed to make the same mistakes that we made between 2020 and 2024. We cannot. If we elect the same people in all the elections coming up in South Africa, America, other parts of the world, we elect the people that locked us down, we elect the people that forced us to wear masks, forced us to separate ourselves, forced us into particular kinds of communities, open special kinds of prisons, forced specific medications on us without any kind of debate. Are these the kind of people that we want to run our world? Is it the Jewish way for this to be like this? Is it? Watch the video again and let me know what you think. If you're observing Passover next week, I wish you Chag Sameach. And I pray that you find it in your heart to forgive the people around you. And one last thing. On Passover, we welcome the stranger because we are told that we were strangers in Egypt. And after God, the most common word in Torah is stranger. And we're sitting at our table maybe with 12 people around us who could be our family members or our friends, our cousins, our mothers, our daughters, our fathers, our sons. Are we friendly with them? Or are they strangers in our lives? Who is stranger? Who is a stranger? Who is the stranger? We even have a special place for Elijah, just in case someone knocks on the door, and we allow them in to join us for this feast. Because we need to welcome the stranger. Those 4 sons, those ones that are asking questions, those are the ones that we honor. Ones that just accept everything, we don't honor them. In Judaism, we have the Chevruta, the 2 people who study together. Why are there 2? Because the one will read something and the other one will read the same thing. And the one will say, do you agree with this? And they'll say, no. And they'll say, okay, let's carry on reading. And 5 pages later, there'll be a completely opposite suggestion. And that's the beauty of Talmud. It's the beauty of Kabbalah, that there are opposing views. And the reason that they're opposing views is because they are meaningful in different times and different environments and for different reasons. And a judge in a court of law might decide for a particular quarrelsome company that this is the right way, but in a different scenario, he might decide on a different view. Even though, if you looked at them subjectively, you would see that they opposite answers for the same thing, but when you go and look objectively, you discover that each of them were the right answer for that particular circumstance, because it's not just about what you can see. There's so much more going on. Chag Sameach. Amen.